Hello, I'm Jack Pidgeon, pastor at West Houston Christian Center, and this is Living with Purpose. And today we're going to continue talking about thinking on purpose. Hey, last time on the show, we started on a series about thinking on purpose, and I want to continue with that today. But first, I kind of wanted to give you a little background about who I am and where all this is coming from. As I said, my name is Jack Pidgeon. I'm the middle son of Jack and Mary Jean Pidgeon. I have two brothers, and we were all raised in a really, really good, godly home. We were raised going to church, but really no one at that point had had a really strong conversion experience. Well, as I got into my teen years, I began to drift, and there were some seeds of rebellion that had been planted, and I knew right from wrong, but I spent a good amount of my teenage years into my early 20s, and a lot of people know my testimony, but there was drugs, alcohol, pornography, you name it, I was pretty much into it. And really, I was led by the lust of my flesh. And so when I got born again and I got saved, it wasn't just my spirit that changed, my mind had to change also. And so I learned how to renew my mind, how to spend some time in the Word. Let me show you a verse that'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's go to the book of Ephesians, Ephesians chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. And this is so cool. It says, "In you he made alive." Man, that was me. "In you he made alive who were dead in trespasses and sins." Verse 2, "In which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience, among whom also we all once conducted ourselves in the lust of the flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others." And I really like this out of the Passion Translation, verse 3. It says, "We lived by whatever natural cravings and thoughts our mind dictated, living as rebellious children, subject to God's wrath, like everyone else." Before I was born again, I was ruled by my 5 physical senses. And smell, sight, touch, we all know them all. And my whole life was dictated. I did whatever made me feel good. If I saw something and I wanted it, I took it. If I smelled something that smelled good, I went towards it. If I tasted something good, I wanted more of it. We all understand that. And so what was happening is that my whole mind was conditioned that whenever it wanted something, that's what it gravitated for. Well, if those are bad things, that can be very, very dangerous. And so I gravitated towards all of the lust of the flesh. My 5 physical senses were being totally directed by my sin nature. And my sin nature was broken. It was dead to God, even though I had been raised in a Christian home. I went to church, sang in the choir, and did all those things, yet, those things don't make us born again. Just going to church, just singing in the choir, just doing good deeds, just feeding the sick or helping the homeless. If we're doing all those things, but our heart's not born again, then we're really not getting the benefit of it. And so what I was finding out is that I was completely and totally being controlled by my 5 physical senses. Let me show you something again in Ephesians chapter 4. It's so good. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 17 through 24. It's a little lengthy, but you want to get your Bible out and you want to underline these verses because this shows us where we came from and where we're going. It says, "This I say therefore and testify in the Lord, that you should no longer walk as the rest of the Gentiles walk, in the futility of their mind, having their understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart, who being past feeling have given themselves over to lewdness, to work all uncleanness with greediness. But you have not so learned Christ. If indeed you have heard him and have been taught by him, as the truth is in Jesus, that you put off concerning your former conduct the old man, which grows corrupt according to the deceitfulness of lust, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that you put on the new man, which was created according to God in true righteousness and holiness. And what I really like out of this verse, there's so much in it, it's so powerful, but if you'll look at that word futility, if you'll look at the word futile, and that's back up in verse 17, it says, "And this I say therefore and testify in the Lord, that you should no longer walk as the rest of the Gentiles walk, in the futility of their mind, having their understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God." And that word futility, it means simply aimless due to lacking purpose or any meaningful end. It means emptiness, but it also means unreality. And one of the big things that I learned when I was a young man is that I walked because there was rebellion in my heart. There were a lot of things that had transpired before I was old enough and before I really got rebellious. And seeds of rebellion had already been sown into my heart. And so as I was being raised in a Christian home, and my parents were trying to sow seeds of obedience into my heart, now I also had these seeds of rebellion that had been there at a long time. And all of a sudden they grew up at the same time, and then there was a harvest. And those rebellious seeds really, for the most part, took me over. One of the tricks that the enemy likes to use against us, especially when we are totally becoming dependent on our flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is we start producing this false reality in our minds. And this answers questions why, well, Pastor Jack, why do people that are addicted, don't they understand that they're hurting people? Don't people that are addicted, don't they understand that the ones that are around them that love them, that they're hurting them? See, when you're in that life and you are dealing with this false reality, you don't see anything but you. And you don't have any empathy that, yes, what I was doing and my lifestyle was a lifestyle that, my parents were in ministry. It did not reflect well on them that their middle son was out doing the things. And yes, just like the prodigal son, anything bad that I did, it was filtering back to my parents. And so what I was finding out is that there was this false reality that I was living in. I thought everything was going to be great. My mom used to say, Jack, you walk through life with rose-colored glasses. It's like I had this false thinking that, my life was going to be great without me doing anything, saying anything, getting educated, without any purpose, without me putting in any effort, that somehow my life was just going to be this great life of purpose. And that was a lie from the pit of hell. That was a false reality that I was living in. And once I got saved and like the veil came off and I began to see for the first time and I really got control of my mind again, I found out, man, when I was walking in that false reality, I thought I was free. I thought I had all of these opportunities, that I could go anywhere, do anything, say anything, and it was going to be amazing. But once I got my mind back and I saw it through the eyes of the Word and through the eyes of the Lord, I found out, wow, what a trap that was. That really was a road heading to nowhere. And in reality, I was in more bondage than I was free at that time. See, that's the lie of that futile mind. It tells you that you're free, but in reality, every day, the devil is putting another chain on you to keep you in bondage. He's adding another addiction to you to keep you in bondage. He's doing something else to try and keep you contained so that you don't become the man or woman that God has called you to be. One of the great verses that we just read in verse 23 says, "And be renewed in the spirit of your mind." And in one of the next programs, we're going to talk about that. How do I renew the spirit of my mind? There is a great way of doing it. We can actually do brain surgery on ourselves. Verse 24, "And that you put on the new man, which was created according to God in true righteousness." When I got born again, I got my mind back. I found out that I was orderly, disciplined, creative. I found out that I could communicate effectively. I found out that I was ordered in what I did, that I liked structure and all these things. God gave me my mind back, and because of that, those things have now really just exploded in my life, and they really became the strengths of what I do. Your life today is the sum total of the things that you pick up and the things that you put down. Just like going to the grocery store, you decide what you're going to put in your cart every day. I've never been to the grocery store one time and my cart just fill up on its own. It's the same when we go through our life on a daily purpose. When I am thinking on purpose, I am going through my life and I am picking up the thoughts that are going to be beneficial to me, and I'm putting down the thoughts that I know are going to be detrimental to me. When I go through my life, and we're going to talk about this on the next broadcast, I want to make sure, if I want to have a life with purpose, I have to think on purpose. That means I have to be purposeful on what do I allow my mind to think on. When I go to the grocery store, there's all kinds of junk food there. I can't just fill up my cart with junk food the whole time. There's vegetables, there's milk, there's meats, there's all kinds of good things there that will help produce a healthy body in me. Our thought life is the exact same way. I can't just think on junk and then think it's going to produce a champion on the inside of me. Amen? Proverbs 23:7 says, "For as he thinks in his heart, so is he." Just like I am, what this body is the sum total of what I've put into it, how I eat, how I work it out, what I do to it. My mind is the exact same way. We truly are what we eat.
Pastor's talking about living our lives just according to our five senses. And wow, there's so much today, especially with all the media, things you see and hear, and it's really easy to get distracted from even what your own path is supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm very glad that God has revealed things to me in His Word through this church and other pastors that I've listened to. Because if I didn't have some of the revelation I have now, I would have freaked out when a lot of this stuff went down. Just because it's like, I don't know what's happening. I'm not controlling any of it. I don't know what's going on, But knowing that if I stay with God, He'll take care of me, basically. I know that that's settled, and so I don't have to worry about these things. The world may go off on the deep end, but if I stay with Him.
If you just look at this last year, you've got COVID and devil hornets and tornadoes and floods, freezes.
Yeah. But what you were saying about staying connected with God, which meaning your spirit is aligned with His spirit, and just kind of back up a little bit. What kind of stood out to me is when he was talking about living through the eyes of your flesh, and when we do that, we're only recognizing ourselves, which is where that rebellion comes from. However, when our spirit is aligned with God's spirit, all of a sudden, then we start realizing the needs and desires of other people, So I think that's a biggie that kind of jumped out at me and was just like, oh yeah, I get that.
I think that God, I like to think of it, he sort of sets boundaries, like He has a fence in the yard, and if you go out and play, you're safe. Your mom and dad let you go out and play, and they have to worry about you because you're in the protection of that. The problem is we get outside that fence and start getting the others. But he mentioned something about fake reality or whatever, and when you get out on the other side and everybody else is bad, you start feeling like this is normal. It's normal to be too bad and do bad things.
Yeah, the thing you're referencing is when he mentioned the verse in Ephesians, the one he had, it was verse 17, and it talks about futility of the mind or something along those lines. Yeah. And unreality was one of the definitions he gave. And it's like, yeah, if you're in a group of people and that's the norm, this is how you're supposed to think. And you're like, then you start seeing what the Bible says about things. And, if you take that as the authority, you see how wrong everything else, it sounds kind of cruel, but it's like, that's how wrong everything else is, because they don't think the way God thinks. They have this, distorted worldview of everything. And yeah, that's why the world is so backwards, because people don't think the way God thinks.
It seems like more and more people are getting on that side to what the new normal is. Yeah, it's okay to do this. It's okay to, take drugs, to whatever, to not be married and sleep around and all those things.
It's like a portion of their definition for futility was aimless, and that's what you see. When you're not living your life with a purpose for God, then basically you're just walking around through life aimlessly. Like, there's no way you're going to get to your destiny walking around aimlessly. You have to have direction. You have to be aligned with God. You have to be connected with Him in order for Him to help guide you to where you should be in life. Yeah.
It's interesting when, God talks about freedom, right? With through Christ there's freedom. And the devil somehow is able to slyly convince you that, oh, you're free. You're free from all those rules that God set aside, free from all those boundaries he set up. And you're like, yeah, I'm free. But what he's really doing is he's putting another chain on you every time he does that. And pretty soon you can't do anything, but you feel somehow it convinces you that you're now free to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Which is not fulfill your destiny.
Yeah. And basically you're just living in bondage, really. And that's, I was just teaching this with the youth earlier, and it was about how if you dabble into something that you shouldn't, and come out of it like, oh, everything is okay, the enemy's going to come right away and tell you, you can do it again. You see, nothing happened. I say, yeah, try it again. Then here you are trying it again, and then the third time, and then the fourth thing, and so on. And then eventually he'll have your mind to a point where you're thinking, this really can't be that bad. That Bible stuff and God, and that can't be true, because I've done this many times. I've done the drugs. I've done, whatever it is, and the lying, and nothing's bad happening to me.
But it's really just a spiritual Russian roulette.
Yeah.
Right? You spin the thing and nothing happened. Spin it again, nothing happened. But one day,
eventually, you're
going to, the odds are out.
Yeah. Well, and then also it's not, like in Genesis, it talks about God told Adam and Eve, if you eat of this, you will die. But they didn't just fall flat, they didn't fall down dead, but death came into the world through the sin they had. So it's similar in that sense that, Russian roulette, I guess, that would be maybe the kind of the big death that could come where you actually die or something along those lines. But every time you sin, death is entered into the life. Like you lie and then you find out like, oh, that wasn't that bad. But then now you have this sense of, I can get away with it, or I can do it again. And then you keep doing that, and then death is just continually being sown into your life, in your life and in your relationships. And then that just brings about more death and so on. It's not you don't get scot-free out of anything.
It made me think, I read some more about if you're ever lost in the woods, you kind of look towards a tree and you start walking that direction. Even if you think you're walking directly east or whatever, your body movements just from walking around rocks, or even if your legs are a little bit longer, shorter, you get 0.5% off, 1% off, 10% off. Pretty soon you're miles from where you're headed. And that's kind of the way it is. He slowly jerks you a little bit off the path, just a tiny bit and a tiny bit. Pretty soon you're on a whole other path.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're just thinking, I'm all getting into science and astronomy and everything, or any type of science really, but you mentioned half a degree off and a little bit off. Like if you're shooting at something that's really far away, like a planet or something, and if you're half a degree off, when you get to where you thought you were going to be, you could be hundreds of thousands of miles away because it's so far away. And that could be with God's purpose for your life. It could be He wants you here, but if you don't ever get back on and you're just kind of, I'm getting there, but you're drifting off, when you get to the end point, you could be way off if you've never sought Him to correct those things. Because He is trying to
check you back.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hey, we're so glad you joined us today. Man, if this was encouraging to you, if this was a blessing to you, man, comment below and let us know. And also, if there's a topic, if there's a subject, if there's something that you'd like us to talk about, put that in there too, man. You can like the channel, subscribe to the channel. We're putting out content on a regular basis, man. There's lots more where this came from. But most importantly, we want to know that we've been a blessing to you today, and that you know that you're loved and that Jesus is Lord.